It was 2 nights before we were supposed to leave. After 3 years of planning, saving, and dreaming about this family vacation. When the message came in, "You won't be coming with us. My wife wants it to be just her side of the family. Thanks for everything, though." That was it. A couple of lines from my son, after everything. I sat at the kitchen table, glasses sliding down my nose, surrounded by the final pieces of preparation. Tiny bottles of sunscreen were packed neatly in labeled zip bags, one for each grandchild. My fingers were still sticky from tape, wrapping up little souvenir bundles, keychains that read "Aloha" and "Grandma loves you." The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the house. Then came another buzz. "Don't take it the wrong way, Mom. It's not personal. It's just easier this way." I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen until it went black, then flipped the phone face down on the table. He didn't call, didn't say thank you, didn't even pretend to be kind, just removed me, quietly, cleanly. I had known things were shifting. Tanya, my daughter-in-law, had been drawing lines for a while, rolling her eyes when I told stories, correcting me in front of the kids, hosting holidays at her mother's without mentioning it, until the last minute. But I never imagined my own son would go along with it. Nathan used to call me his best friend. He'd bring me tulips every spring, and write me Mother's Day cards that brought me to tears. I still have that drawing he made in 2nd grade. Me in a cape, with the words, "My mom saves the day." Now, I was told I wasn't her family. I'd done my part, apparently, by paying. I looked over at the small duffel I'd packed 2 old sundresses, a framed photo of my late husband, and a lavender candle, his favorite scent, for a little memorial I'd planned on the beach. I had imagined the kids barefoot in the sand, the sun setting behind us, my grandson asking, "Did Grandpa love the beach, too?" And I'd smile and say, "He loved it more because we were together." But none of that would happen. I wasn't going. I had paid for the beachfront rental. I booked the flights, arranged the airport shuttles, reserved the snorkeling lessons, the breakfast baskets. I made sure the beds were soft for the kids and the walkways flat enough for Tanya's mother's bad knee. And yet, I was cut out. Just like that. A line item crossed off the itinerary. The bank account I had built over 3 years, the one all the trip expenses were connected to, was still open. I had set it up so everything pulled from one source, mine, because I trusted them. I believed that trust still meant something. I opened my laptop. The file was there: Hawaii Trip Fund, 21,763.84. It started with a mason jar behind a bag of flour in my kitchen cabinet. I called it the dream jar. I put away $10 here, 5 there. I sold furniture. I started tutoring online at night even when my eyes ached and my joints throbbed. I canceled cable, gave up small comforts. All for this trip. Not just a vacation, a memory, a gift. I had pictured it healing things, bridging the distance, letting my grandkids see the place where their grandfather and I once laughed until we cried. I thought it might remind Nathan of where he came from and who loved him first. But that wasn't going to happen. I hovered my mouse over the freeze account button. I didn't click, not yet. Instead, I opened a blank document and started a new list: Carol, who hadn't left town in 20 years, Louise, widowed last fall, Frances, who raised her grandkids but wasn't invited to their graduations, Beverly, who said she'd never once had her picture taken on a beach. Women who had been cast aside quietly like I had. Then I went back to the bank screen. "Are you sure you want to pause all linked transactions?" "Yes." "All linked cards will be disabled immediately." "Yes." I closed the laptop, sat quietly in the kitchen. The only light was the warm under-cabinet glow. No anger, no tears. Just a soft, aching clarity. I unwrapped the souvenir bags I had made, one by one. I set the little keychains on the table. And I smiled. Not out of spite, but out of something stronger. Resolve. It wouldn't be the trip I planned. But maybe it would be the trip I needed. Not with people who made me feel like a burden, but with people who would see me, who'd feel the ocean breeze and know they were part of something beautiful. This time, I wouldn't be the afterthought. This time, I'd be the host. The house was big enough for all 9 of us. I made sure of that. I called the travel agent more times than I can count, asking about bed arrangements, checking dietary restrictions, even confirming that the beach house was wheelchair accessible for Tanya's mother. I ordered custom T-shirts for everyone. They were white with navy lettering that read, "Family is Forever, 2023. I thought they'd wear them on our first full day in Hawaii. All of us gathered for a photo on the beach. Sun on our shoulders, kids laughing in the surf. Everyone smiling the way families do when they feel whole. I chose that home carefully. It had a fire pit by the shore. I had pictured us sitting around it one night, each of us lighting a candle, saying a word to describe James, my husband, their father, their grandfather. I would bring the photo of him, the one where he's laughing, his head tilted back, the sunlight in his hair. I'd hold it in my lap while we all said something good, something true. I imagined silence, maybe tears, maybe laughter, but mostly, I imagined being seen, being thanked, being held. None of that happened. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped being part of the picture. And I don't just mean that figuratively. I mean literally. It started small. At first, fewer photos. At Thanksgiving, Tanya would say, "Let's get one with just the kids. Then, let's do one with our little family." By the time they finished, there was no time left for one with me. At Christmas, they wore matching sweaters, red with little white trees. Mine was blue. I hadn't even known there was a theme. Nathan brushed it off when I asked, "Oh Mom, you're not into that stuff." But I was. I just wasn't asked. Tanya took over birthdays. She started hosting everything at her mother's house. I was invited, technically. But I felt more like an afterthought, a guest they couldn't leave out without looking rude. Once, I overheard her tell someone, "Oh, Nathan's mom is here too." Like I'd just wandered in. She always smiled like she meant well. But not all harm comes from yelling. Sometimes harm comes wrapped in politeness, in who's left out of the group text, the photo, the seating plan. Still, I kept planning. Still, I hoped. Because I believed this trip would bring us back together. 9 of us, under the same Hawaiian sky. I pictured the waves whispering against the shore, the kids squealing in the water, and I told myself that once we were there, surrounded by beauty and memory, love would be enough. That was the story I clung to. That was the dream I built from 3 years of quiet sacrifice. Until the text came. "You've already done your part by paying." That's all it took to unravel everything. 3 years of skipped comforts, cold nights, tired tutoring sessions after sunset, all of it reduced to a transaction. I hadn't been building a bridge. I'd been building a pedestal. One they never intended to stand on. I thought of those candles, wrapped in tissue, tucked carefully between beach towels in my bag. I thought of the image I held so tightly, us, together, holding hands around a fire, honoring the man who had loved us all so well. But the truth came crashing in like a wave slamming into stone. They didn't want my stories. They didn't want my memories. They only wanted my money. And now that they had it, they didn't need me anymore. That night, I went to the closet and unpacked my bag. I set the lavender candle on the table next to James's photo. I looked at his smiling face and asked a question no mother should ever have to ask. When did I become a burden in the very family I built? The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Not because I had plans. Just because I couldn't sleep. I moved through the house like a shadow, folding already folded blankets, straightening picture frames, wiping spotless counters. The silence had a weight to it, heavy and humming. Later that afternoon, I logged into my email to find a receipt from the grocery store. That's when I saw it. Subject: Final itinerary, Hawaii family vacation sent from the travel agency. I clicked without thinking. There it was. A full breakdown: flight schedules, check-in instructions for the villa, excursions, dinner reservations, rental car pickups. Every detail I had spent months organizing. I scrolled slowly, not really reading, just searching. Searching for proof of what I already knew but didn't want to face. 8 names. Nathan, Tanya, their 2 children, Tanya's parents, Tanya's sister, Tanya's sister's boyfriend, not mine, not Marilyn. 8 plane tickets. 8 flower lice for the airport greeting. 8 guests listed at the villa. I wasn't one of them. I stared at the screen. My hand hovered over the mouse. I zoomed in, hoping I'd missed something. A typo. A hidden 9th name. But I hadn't missed anything. Maybe I was guest Fedi 9. Maybe they added me separately. Maybe they just forgot to copy me on a second email. I told myself those things as I stared at the travel itinerary. But there were no extra attachments, no separate confirmations, no hidden details waiting to reassure me. Just 8 names, 8 tickets, 8 welcome packages, and none of them were mine. I sat there for a long moment, the room quiet around me. Then, gently, like the laptop might crack under pressure, I closed the screen. That evening, the phone rang. Tanya, not Nathan. Tanya. Her voice came through bright and artificial, sweetened at the edges. Just finishing up packing, she chirped. Hope everything's all set on your end, money-wise. The last payment should process tomorrow, right? I didn't respond immediately. Something about her tone, cheerful but calculated, pressed down on my chest. After a pause, I asked softly, Is there anything you need me to bring? There was silence on the other end. The kind that slices between words like a blade. Bring, she echoed. Oh, no, you don't need to bring anything. Still, I tried again, carefully. Just wondering if I should pack any games for the kids or snacks for the plane. I know they sometimes get sick on long flights. This time, her voice was still smiling, but there was steel underneath. Marilyn, it's all taken care of. You really don't need to worry. Actually, we were thinking, maybe it's best if you take this time to rest. Just stay home. Focus on yourself. She said it like she was doing me a favor. Like cutting me out was some kind of kindness. After the call ended, I stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the old birdbath James installed 2 decades ago. The water was still, not a ripple, just like me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shocked. I was still. I walked to the closet and pulled down the small fireproof lockbox. Inside were the documents I'd kept neatly filed since the day I opened the travel fund. The account I had created, the one I had filled, the one tied to every booking. There it was in bold: account holder, Marilyn Rose Monroe, authorized users known, co-signers known, shared access. No, I opened my banking app. The screen blinked. There it was, the number I knew by heart: travel fund, the 21,763.8484 status active, linked cards. 6 primary billing owner me. I stared at it, and something in me shifted. They had erased me, confidently, cleanly, as if I were an afterthought, a loose end. They had spent my kindness like it belonged to them, then tossed aside my presence like it was excess baggage. It had never been our vacation. It had always been a transaction, and I was the funding source. But the thing about banks, they can close. That night, I didn't take action. I didn't call, I didn't cry, I didn't even speak. I turned off my phone. I made a cup of peppermint tea and sat in silence. I let the reality settle into my bones. Not just the hurt, but the truth beneath it. They hadn't forgotten me. They had left me out on purpose, and worse, they assumed I would accept it. That I'd sit quietly, grateful for the scraps, invisible in the background. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They thought I'd stay silent. They forgot who raised them. I closed the app. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night, not with rage, not with revenge, but with clarity. I didn't blow up the phone lines. I didn't send a long-winded message or cry over the unfairness of it all. I simply made tea. I sat in the old chair James used to call the lookout, next to the window, where I could watch the wind stir the leaves and let the quiet settle in around me. No TV. No music. Just the steady hum of the fridge and the occasional tap of tree branches against the glass. And in that hush, something inside me stopped swirling. It wasn't peace exactly, not calm. It was something heavier, something final. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't waiting for anyone to say sorry. I was deciding. I opened my laptop. It blinked awake beside me, casting soft light on my face. I logged into the banking app and navigated to the travel account, the one I had been building for 3 years. My name was still at the top. Account holder Marilyn Rose Monroe, linked cards 6: 1 for the resort, 1 for the car rental, 1 for the airline, 3 for meals, tours, and entertainment. All neatly arranged to pull directly from my account, the account they never expected me to check. I clicked Settings. There it was, Transaction Lock, OFF. A note beneath it read, Enable this feature to immediately pause all transactions. Linked cards will be declined until the account holder authorizes reactivation. Just one click. I didn't press it, not yet. Instead, I opened my calendar. I circled their departure day in red. Flight 10:45 a.m. out of LAX. If they arrived around 8:15 am to check in, that would be the moment. That was when I would activate the freeze. Not out of spite, but as a mirror. Let them experience what I had, a quiet, unexpected exclusion. But still, I hesitated. Because when you stop playing the role they assigned you, the cheerful giver, the selfless mother, the quiet supporter, there's no going back. I wanted to be sure. So, I gave them one final opportunity. One last door held open. I sent a message to Nathan. Let me know if you need help with the kids' bags or snacks. I can pack extra motion bands for Olivia. The message was simple, soft.
Me. An hour passed. Then 2. Read. No response. No, thanks, Mom. No, appreciate it.
Just silence. That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't miscommunication. It wasn't Tanya's preferences or a forgotten detail. It was something colder. They didn't forget me. They left me out on purpose, assuming I wouldn't notice, or worse, that I'd be too polite to protest. They saw my love as a resource. My savings as a silent donation. I wasn't invited. I was harvested. I went back to the banking app. I hovered my finger. Then I clicked. Freeze mode and all linked transactions paused. Manual verification now required. No warning would go out. No email. No alert. They would find out the same way I found out I wasn't coming. In the most silent, unmistakable way possible. I leaned back in James's chair, sipped my tea, and let it settle. This wasn't revenge. This was recognition. They made their choices. I had just made mine. Over the next 2 days, I said nothing. When Tanya posted a photo of the family's matching beach hats, I didn't comment. When Nathan texted, ready for takeoff. In the group chat, I didn't reply. When my youngest granddaughter sent me a voice note, her tiny voice bubbling, "Grandma, we're going to see sea turtles," I saved it. I held the phone to my chest and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby. But someone had to teach your parents what love actually costs." Then I opened a new file on my computer. Not an itinerary. Not a payment schedule. A list. People who deserve to be seen. At the top, I wrote the names Carol, Beverly, Louise, Frances, Nora, Denise, women like me, overlooked, underestimated, taken for granted. And beneath each name I started building something new. Ideas. Possibilities. A different kind of trip. Not to please others but to restore ourselves. Not out of obligation, but out of strength. Because if I was still going to hold the checkbook, I would decide who was worth the journey. That night, I left the window open. The breeze drifted through like a secret finally spoken aloud. They thought all that was left was the flight. But flights don't run on sunshine and boarding passes. They run on trust. And they had none left with me. The next morning, they left for the airport, matching luggage, straw hats, that smug, casual air of people who think they've outmaneuvered everyone. Tanya posted a photo from the backseat of the Uber. The kids were grinning. Nathan flashed a peace sign. The caption read, "Off to paradise. Family only." That last part cut deeper than any insult ever could. I saw it while drinking coffee from an old mug, the one Nathan once used to serve me breakfast in bed when he was 9 years old. I didn't like how I felt. But I didn't look away. Frame by frame, I watched their morning unfold. Check-in, security, boarding gate, bags stacked, children bouncing with excitement. Tanya's mother posed next to the airline sign like it was her big debut. 8 smiles, no seat for me. Then came the first message. "Nathan, hey. Getting some kind of error at check-in. Can you check the travel account real quick?" I didn't respond. 5 minutes later, "Mom, they're saying the card declined like, more than once. Can you see anything on your end?" Still, I stayed quiet. Then came the calls, one every 10 minutes. Then every 5, then nonstop. Voicemails poured in. "Mom, it's me. Just call me, please. They're not letting us through without payment. Mom, something's wrong with the car rental. Can you please just check? The kids are freaking out. We're standing at the counter. We need to fix this. Please, just tell me if the account is okay." I kept the phone face down on the table. The clock read 8:27 am. Their flight was at 10:45. I could picture them now. Nathan confused. Tanya flustered, the credit card machine beeping each time they tried again. Because here's the truth. You can leave someone out of the picture, but you don't get to use their camera. At the airport, things unraveled fast. I imagined Tanya's parents whispering in tight voices, trying not to draw attention. Nathan sweating, still pretending like he had it under control. Then came the voicemail. A different tone this time, no charm, no confidence, just a quiet urgency. Mom, I don't know what you did, but if this is because of that text, can we just talk? A no apology, no ownership. Just the suggestion of conversation, now that everything had collapsed. Still, I said nothing. Then came the email. Not from them, but from the resort subject, villa booking cancellation, confirmed. Dear Miss Monroe, your villa reservation has been successfully cancelled due to account status. All charges have been reversed. As the sole account holder, no further action is needed. We look forward to hosting you in the future. I read it once, then again, and then I allowed myself a slow, sharp breath of relief. They wouldn't be hosted. Not there. Not now. Maybe not ever. At 10:40 a.m., Nathan texted one last time before takeoff. We're boarding. Call me, please. But I didn't. They had a flight, sure, but no destination, because money only moves when trust holds the door open. And they had shut that door themselves. By noon, my phone looked like a fire alarm had gone off. 50+ missed calls from Nathan, Tanya, even Tanya's mother. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. Instead, I went for a walk. The sun was warm on my face. Birds chirped like nothing had happened. A neighbor waved and asked if I had any travel plans for spring break. I smiled. Not yet, I said, but soon. When I returned home, the chaos had gone quiet. Just one new message waited. Look, if this is about what we said, maybe we messed up, okay? I don't know. Things got twisted. But the kids are here, they're excited. We can fix this. Just unlock the account. We'll talk everything through when we get back. That was the moment I saw it for what it was. They wanted the vacation, not the reckoning. They wanted a reset without reflection. They wanted me to foot the bill for their happiness while mine was left unspoken, unseen. So, no, I didn't unlock the account. I didn't reply. And I didn't explain, because sometimes silence is the only response that echoes loud enough to matter. 2 days later, the refunds began rolling in. Small notifications, one by one: the villa, the car rental, airline fees, excursions, the luau, the snorkeling tour, even the floral lease, all reversed, all returned, all mine again. My travel fund, once drained in the name of love, was full again. But this time love wouldn't be blind, it wouldn't be silent, and it wouldn't be one-sided. This time, I would spend it differently. Not for appearances. Not for people who saw me as a walking checkbook with crow's feet. But for those who knew what memories were worth. Because they too had spent lifetimes giving without being seen. I pulled out my old notebook, the one where I once wrote down James's favorite songs, his fishing recipes, and the names of every grandchild. I flipped to a clean page. At the top, I wrote 3 words, the forgotten women, and I began to list their names. Carol, from church, whose children hadn't come home in 5 Christmases. Frances, who still wore her wedding ring, even though he left 30 years ago. Beverly, who cared for her brother with dementia and slept beside his hospital bed. Nora, who once told me, the hardest part of aging isn't the pain. It's becoming invisible. Lucille, my old neighbor, a retired librarian who had never seen the ocean. Diane, who once drove me to the clinic when I was limping and never let me pay her back. I made 6 phone calls. Each one started with a hesitant hello. Each one ended in disbelief. You want to take me where? Hawaii. For 1 week. No catch. But why me? Because someone should. Because you matter. I made the bookings under my own name this time. 1 oceanfront villa. 6 women. 7 days. No matching t-shirts, no hashtags. No family, only captions. I called the travel agent and gave her the names. Real women. Real stories. I asked for separate beds and 1 large table, with enough space for all of us to sit together each night. Then I pulled out the box from under my bed. The one with the photo of James. The one I had planned to set at the head of a table that never welcomed me. His smile was still bright, still boyish, still mine. I had the photo enlarged and framed, not in gold but in smooth walnut. the kind that darkens and deepens with time. I wrapped it carefully in bubble wrap and placed it in my suitcase. When we arrived at the villa, a home perched above the sea, where palm trees swayed like dancers and the air kissed your skin with salt and sun, I walked through the door and set James's photo in the center of the dining table. No one asked me to move it. No one acted like it didn't belong. That night, we sat beneath soft hanging lights, the doors wide open to the sound of waves. Carol wore a bright scarf and kept refilling everyone's wine. Beverly raised a glass and said, "Finally. A place I don't have to clean." Frances cried when she saw the view from her window. We didn't talk about who forgot us. We talked about who we remembered. We didn't compare scars. We showed each other the strength beneath them. And James, my James, watched it all from the middle of the table, his grin unchanged. Each night, we lit a single candle beside him, and each woman spoke one truth she wished she'd heard at 30. You are not invisible. You're allowed to rest. You don't have to earn love. You're still becoming. You deserve more. You are not too late. On the final night, we walked the shoreline in silence. The stars looked close enough to catch. The moon turned our wrinkles to silver. The waves curled around our feet like promises kept. I looked at the women beside me, tired, joyful, radiant. And I knew I hadn't missed a trip. I had chosen the right one. They were women who had given quietly, loved deeply, and carried more than their share without ever asking for applause. And somewhere between the clink of glasses and the crashing of waves, I realized the truth: this wasn't just a vacation. It was a homecoming, not to a place, but to ourselves. To memory, to meaning. Because when shared with the right hearts, memory doesn't fade. It takes root. It becomes legacy. 3 days after we returned, as I unpacked the last of my suitcase, plumeria still clinging to my scarf and half a pineapple wrapped in a fridge bag, I opened my inbox. There it was, subject, "Just want to clear the air," from Nathan. I stared at it for a long moment before clicking it open. "Hi Mom, we're back now. The trip, well, it didn't really go the way we thought it would. A lot of stuff went sideways, and I guess some of that's on us. I'm not saying everything was handled perfectly. Maybe we could have communicated better. Tanya says hi, by the way. She was super stressed. She didn't mean to exclude you. I think she just had this picture of how the trip should feel. You know how she gets with planning. Anyway, I've been thinking. Maybe we weren't fair. Maybe we did mess up. But now that we're home, we're trying to figure things out. The kids are confused, and we're trying not to drag them into any drama. That said, we're in a tight spot financially. Had to rebook a lot of stuff on credit, and it's adding up. So, if you're able, could you maybe send back the original deposit we gave for the trip? Or even just a part of it. I know this might be hard, but we're still family. Just let me know." Nathan, I read it once, then again, and then one more time, just to be sure I hadn't imagined the part that mattered most. "If you're able, could you maybe send back the original deposit?" They hadn't reached out to reconnect, not to apologize, not to make amends. They wanted a refund, as if this had been some mutual investment, as if they'd poured something in, anything, besides expectation. But I knew the truth. There had been no deposit, only withdrawal. They assumed I would pay. Assumed I would stay quiet. Assumed I'd be so desperate to belong that I wouldn't question the seat they didn't offer me. But I checked the records, every transaction, every booking, every dollar, all from my account, my name, my sacrifice. There had been no shared fund, no partnership, just me. And now they were asking for my money to cover their consequences. It might have been laughable, if it hadn't been so familiar. Because that's the unspoken job, right? The mother, the quiet giver. Pay the bill, swallow the insult, take the photo, be left out of the frame, and still buy the frame. I closed my eyes and thought of that dining table in Hawaii. 6 women glowing in the candlelight, clinking glasses, passing bread, laughing like girls, and James, steady in his walnut frame, watching from the center with that smile I loved most. No guilt, no expectation, just presence, just peace. Then I thought of Nathan's email, the way it avoided the word sorry, the way it excused Tanya's behavior with stress, the way it shifted discomfort onto my shoulders, as if I was meant to fix what they broke. But here's the thing, understanding isn't the same as accepting. And love without respect is just obligation dressed up in guilt. I hovered over the reply button. Then I closed the email. Because when someone asks for a refund on betrayal, the answer doesn't need to be spoken. If they can't see why you've chosen to keep what's yours, then they never truly saw you at all. I shut my laptop, went to the kitchen, poured a tall glass of iced tea. Out the window, a small bird skimmed the garden, brushing the wind chime James had hung on our 35th anniversary. It made a soft, bell-like sound, light as breath, sweet as memory. I smiled. I hadn't received a real apology, but I had received something better: clarity and control, and the right to hold on to what was mine. Later that evening, I walked barefoot to the beach. The tide kissed my toes like it remembered me. The sky had that shade of pink you only ever see on postcards, or in moments so perfect you forget to take a picture. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt no ache, just the quiet knowing that I was exactly where I was meant to be. There are some memories that wait for the quiet to return, those you thought you'd buried long ago. But there, behind me, the villa glowed with laughter. Not the forced kind, not loud or performative. It was soft and full, rising from deep places where healing had finally begun. Frances was telling a story about getting on the wrong bus before her wedding rehearsal and ending up 3 towns away. Carol was trying to teach Beverly how to hula dance with a flower behind her ear. Doy hummed a lullaby she hadn't sung since her children were small. And Nora, dear Nora, was writing a postcard to herself, addressed to a home that hadn't received a letter in over 10 years. I watched them and thought, this is what real family looks like, not polished, not perfect, just present, just real. A space where no one's performing, no one's proving, just being. It took me years to learn that love doesn't have to shout. It doesn't arrive with grand gestures or shiny photos. It shows up, again and again, quiet, steady, chosen. That night, after dinner, we gathered on the patio. I took out the last candle, lavender, scented. I'd brought 7. 6 had already been lit, each by one of us, each flame holding a memory, a name, or a goodbye that had never been spoken aloud. Now it was my turn. I placed James's photo in the center of the table. The others grew quiet. This, I said softly, was supposed to be for all of them, for my family. But maybe it was always meant for this. I struck a match. The flame caught, small at first, then steady. I lit the candle and watched the wax begin to melt, slow and certain, like time itself. Beverly reached over and touched my hand. I didn't think I'd ever feel this again, she whispered. Peace, gratitude, like I mattered. She looked at me, eyes misted, and I didn't think it would come from someone like you. Someone like me, I asked. She nodded. Someone who understands what it means to give everything and still be left standing on the doorstep. I didn't say anything. I just held her hand a little tighter. Later, we walked together to the shoreline, barefoot, slow. Each woman carried something small, a shell, a ribbon, a scrap of paper with a name written in faded ink. We stood in a circle in the sand. No speeches, no ceremony, just the sound of the sea and the weight of presence. And I said it, not to James, not to them, but to the part of myself that had waited the longest to hear it. I'm not sad anymore. Because I wasn't. I wasn't angry either. I wasn't hoping Nathan would call. I wasn't waiting for Tanya to suddenly understand what she'd done. I wasn't dreaming of some tear-filled reunion where I was finally seen. I had stopped carrying all of it, and in the letting go, I had become light again. I thought about that email, how quickly remorse had turned into negotiation, how apology had been replaced by a request for money. I thought about the years I had poured myself into people who only remembered me when they needed something. And I smiled. Not the polite smile you wear when you're handed a paper plate at a family gathering and told there's no room at the table, but the smile of someone who has finally realized I was never the problem. I had simply been giving my best to people who decided long ago that it would never be enough. That's when the words came. Not loud, just true. Kinness, when given without boundaries, becomes permission. And some people will take everything you offer and leave you empty. So I stopped offering it to them. Not out of bitterness, but because I was finally free. free from expectations that drained me, free from the lie that love must always cost, free from the performance of motherhood that demanded sacrifice in exchange for crumbs. And what about you? I stepped closer to the waves. They rose up to meet me, soft and cool, wrapping around my ankles like they'd been waiting for me to arrive. And I let go. I let go of the version of family I had tried to earn. I let go of the house I helped build but never felt welcome in. I let go of the reaching, the apologizing, the endless trying. And what remained was a handful of women who saw me, a villa filled with warmth, a photo of the man I loved most, framed in soft walnut, and a heart that no longer needed to beg for belonging. I turned to look at them, my chosen family, and I thought I wasn't left behind. I was just walking a different road. And finally, I found the ones walking beside me. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever given love to people who forgot you, if you've ever been erased and had to write yourself back into your own life,